Right, we might be live now. There we go. Right, off you go, Simon. Oh, it's counting down.
Okay, let's wait for that countdown.
Wait for the signal. Yeah.
There we go. Right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of the Property Professionals. As we talk to you, I think Bobby's got some fabulous property news to share with us today, but I'll let him have his 5 minutes of fame with that, because we've all been waiting for these announcements. We have a packed show as always, and my co-host Dil Gujaj. Say hi, Dil.
Hi, Dil. sorry. It's good.
You always have to do that every week, don't you, Dil? Yeah, never let me down. And he's our party wall specialist and co-host, and also with us on the panel is another founder, is Nishit Kotak, marketing guy. Say hi.
Good afternoon, everyone.
So us three and Bobby are making up the founders of the Property Professionals, who are a like-minded bunch of individuals who want to network and share ideas in the property market whilst we are in lockdown. We welcome all our viewers on Facebook, where we know you'll tune in and watch. Please do join us on the webinar or on the Zoom meeting link. Don't be shy. You can come and join us here as well. I know you'll find it easier just to click on your phones because we can see the viewing figures. So thank you to all of our viewers who regularly watch our shows, and the questions that keep coming in as well. We will endeavour to answer those live today. So please either email us direct or get them on the chat box or in the Facebook group itself, and we will come back to you hopefully live today or separately, as I said. So we are a non-profit making organisation, and we try and avoid the need to go on all those expenses, courses, mistakes at the start. Let's find out if you really need to go on those courses to actually, before you spend thousands of pounds on them as just a gold idea that someone sold to you. That's one of our primary aims, but the other aim is to actually form this network of people and share ideas, business between ourselves, and go onwards and upwards as a property group. So I think we're nearly approaching 500 members now on Facebook, which is fabulous in terms of a recruitment drive for us, because of being in lockdown since we started wasn't much fun for us to get out and meet people. But we're on Zoom. We will be for looks like another 3 months maybe before we can all get back out to play again. So not sure if anyone will be tuning in on the first Thursday after June the 21st, but let's see what happens anyway. But anyway, so our guests today, we have the resident Chancellor, Bobby Madden, who will be updating us on all the important financial news for the week. He might be just on audio today rather than video, just as a little warning. And we're also delighted that ASHLEY Broughton has joined us today. Can you say hi, Ashley, if you're...
Hello. Nice to be here.
Thank you for joining us today. So as you can see, Ashley on his background there, he owns Agora Architects and his award-winning architectural practice, and he'll be showing some plans with us, but Dil will do the formal introduction a little bit later. So in the meantime, let's go over to Bobby. Are you there, Bobby? Let's see if he's there.
I am indeed.
You are indeed. I know you're not feeling at your best today, Bobby, but have you got some news for us today?
Nothing concrete, unfortunately.
Is it just speculation then?
Speculation. But yeah, we're kind of going through a very strange time in the financial markets, and our dearest Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, is actually considering a 6-week extension at the moment to the stamp duty holiday to allow purchases already in progress to complete, according to reports. This is exactly what happened in 2016, where the rule at that time was changed at the very last minute during the budget, that if you have had exchanged by a certain date in March, you could continue to complete accordingly. At the moment, this news is kind of very hard hit, as a lot of people are actually contemplating whether to buy or not, even at this stage. But it's also reported that a longer extension, and there's also talks about even scrapping the land tax, would actually have an insignificant impact on the tax income for Treasury. But there are so many things that are actually due to happen next week, including increases in potential increases on corporation tax. But during the debate in Parliament earlier this month, it kind of caused for MPs to consider a phased withdrawal of the deadline, just to kind of help borrowers within the process. But the upcoming 3rd of March is going to be crucial and a likely date for any sort of extension to be found or announced. A Treasury spokesperson from my memory did say to the department that it didn't comment on any sort of tax policy outside of the fiscal events, but not wanting to go too much into the whole economics of what's going to be happening. In a nutshell, things are very positive. I don't foresee there being any major issues in having the extension happening, but on a more positive note, things are changing quite a bit from the income side. 90% mortgages are coming back into the market. This week, we saw the introduction of a 95% lending capacity for a lender. I've actually seen with 2 lenders now since January the 1st that have actually come back into the market for the 5.5 times income multiplier for professional applicants. Professional applicants will include generically people like accountants, architects, actuaries, barristers, chartered surveyors, dentists, doctors, optometrists, pharmacists, solicitors, veterinarians, and financial advisors. But the qualification must align normally, and it must be someone that's newly qualified in the last 5 years. But this is something that was very popular. I think Metro were one of the first banks to start it many years ago, and a lot of lenders have actually followed suit, and quite rightly. In addition to that, on a positive note as well, help to buy and shared ownership, I'm actually seeing an increasing number of people actually going into the whole shared ownership side of things. A lot of people are actually trusting shared ownership a lot more, where this wasn't the case previously. And it really comes down to the affordability. You know, hypothetically, if you have someone buying an 800,000 market, they could potentially go ahead and buy a 25% share for 200. So it really does mean that you can actually really plan and prepare for the future accordingly. Another increase we're actually seeing is there's a huge surge on inquiries I'm getting in people trying to potentially look at second charge loans in order to make their other purchases happen. Bridging loans are very, very high on the mark as well. But that is the main way to beat the stamp duty holiday, by using a second charge mortgage to purchase the property. The type of buyers this could apply to are those who already have sufficient equity in their property in one or more properties of their own. We've done a case recently where we spread the risk of a second charge mortgage or second charge bridge over 14 properties to attain lending for one purchase. But we managed to get this through the line within 5.5 days, working days from start to finish, subject to legals, which might take a further 10-15 days. But, you know, try to avoid conveyancing delays. Make sure you use someone that's competent. Make sure you use someone that's actually willing to put the work in. But when you're buying an auction, they have no choice but to abide by that within 28 days. So at least that's, you know, that's still something that's still very positive. But for now, I think things are very, very quiet on the bridging fronts, because people are waiting to see what's happening later on. I think the very last thing, just wanted to really mention, something I'm actually preparing just to get qualifications for in the next couple of months, just to kind of start doing different things, is later life lending. RIOs have become extremely popular, which are retirement interest only mortgages. And there are more and more people that, I shouldn't say the word, they're not concerned about what the next generation will inherit, but they're more concerned about having a good life themselves. Hypothetically, you have a client that has a property worth $1 million, unencumbered. They would rather release 500,000 to receive a continued annuity and maybe a bulk amount of money to buy maybe a holiday home somewhere that they'd rent out on Airbnb or something. Later life lending is very good for this sort of thing. It's something more and more people are actually turning to. I never thought of going into that field before, but I think more so now. The financial needs of the older people are developing day by day, and you know, later life is examining what's going wrong with society and what's going occasionally right. And on this occasion, I feel these things are going quite right. But yeah, that's kind of all I have today. So I'm not in the best of spirits, but hopefully I've managed to get some information over to yourselves. And
Yep. Surinder, when I was talking with Surinder earlier, Bobby, he was saying that David from Cornerstone said that the government were in a bit of a pickle with the stamp duty, and the wording wasn't clear enough, and the people that had exchanged and actually in a contract were actually only obliged to pay the amount on exchange for the day of exchange anyway. So,
agreed. And this is kind of where, you know, I've got a number of clients with Cornerstone, and I think they're a very reputable firm from my experience with them. So hats off to them from who they've helped from my side. But I will honestly state it's very important. You do not ask your mortgage broker for stamp duty advice. You do not ask your accountant for stamp duty advice. You do not ask your solicitor for stamp duty advice. We are the worst 3 people you can ask in your life. And these are the 3 people that are turned to 99.9% of the times. The only person that is authorized to deal and authorized to give you that advice is someone like Cornerstone. And I would always recommend that's what you do. They will know exactly what the initial stance is from the wording. I'm not qualified or even adequate in knowledge to understand that, but I have full confidence if that's what they're saying. There's probably a way, but obviously that's what you're paying for. You're paying for someone's experience and expertise in that manner. What happened back in 2016 is you actually had people that were able to exchange, and this was announced on the budget in 2016. They could exchange and then complete at a time to suit. I don't remember what the exact timeline was. Don't think there was one from memory, but people knew that it wouldn't be a very extended duration between exchange and completion, but providing you had exchanged by the end of March, it was all good to go. I completely agree. I haven't seen this video. I'm not sure what it entails, but I'll be very honest with you. It's if something has not been worded correctly, a tax specialist, a stamp duty specialist is the person to ask.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you for that. Back to you, Dil. We'll go to Ranjit next if he's there.
Okay. Yep, he's here. Ranjit, come in, sir. Perhaps he's having. No, I thought he was having his royal snooze this afternoon, but obviously he's there.
He's there.
Okay, yeah, got him. Got it. Ranjit, you there, sir?
Yes, I'm here, sir. How are you?
We're all good. Now, I know what you're going to ask for next. Can I start the slide? Sure.
Oh, can you put my slide on? I'm using the iPhone today.
Oh, I've got to put your slide on. Yes. Actually, you'll have to just use the one on the screen because I haven't got yours with me at the moment.
Okay.
It's all going good. Great here. All right. So yeah, off you go. Sorry about that. Obviously not enough warning. As we know, Ranjit is the Maharaja and no property meeting is complete without him. So Ranjit, off you go, even without your slides.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ranjit from Property Investor News, and we've been publishing this magazine for over 18 years. Who is the magazine for? Property investors, developers, traders, landlords, land buyers, solicitors, accountants, surveyors, party wall surveyors, and the list goes on and on. Why should you subscribe to Property Investor News? 1, education, the knowledge to ask the right questions, the information to weigh up the deal. 3, strategy so you can decide what's right for you. Confidence to go forward. Some key articles in our February 2021 issue. Relevant to your property businesses and the changing and the challenging world. Opening comments from our editor, Richard Bowser. UK property market news, landlord news, planning laws. Can planning laws revive the high streets? Development and planning news across UK cities and towns. Great tool for researching areas to invest in. News analysis, slow housing market. Third lockdown, sellers reluctant to list homes. SDLT, deadline, decision. Investors interview. Repurposing retail for the high yield with Andy Baben. Commercial property 2021, the year to niche your commercial property investing strategy by Susie Carter, Charter Surveyor. Investment Matters, the Tina Effect by Minesh Kataria, professional financial advisor. Investor Opinions, what is your risk appetite? By Helen Shawley, investor and former investment banker. Commercial Property, Disruption or Opportunity in 2021 by Susie Carter. Investor Opinion, What Does Freedom Look Like in 2021 by Helen Shawley, investor and former investment banker. Planning Matters, Sustainability and Design 2021 by David Camp, planning consultant and a barrister. Development Tales, Small Developers, Real Takeaway for 2020 by Alex Harrison Griffith. Investor Opinion, COVID, Stamp Duty Investing by John Corey, veteran international investor. European and worldwide news and much, much more. Subscribe to Property Investor News and read all the articles and much, much more in greater depth. We do have a special offer, and that is you receive 6 issues of Property Investor News magazine, including our 200th issue, plus the book Before the Hammer Falls. All you do is go on to our website, which Dil will put on the chat, and subscribe, and then send me an email, because this is an event offer, not online offer. Send an email to ranjit@property-investor-news.com with your name, postal address, and the long reference number which the system will generate. Remember, question to ask yourself that changes everything is, what is going well? Question for you, do you have the expertise, the knowledge, the insight to adapt and prosper? Let us help you on your property journey to investing success. Subscribe today, ongoing education, in-depth market analysis every month. Access to 15,000 keyword search articles, 250 plus videos and webinar archive. Subscribe just for $7.95 a month. Because property investment and development is for the brave and the bold in changing, challenging times, that's why we have put this offer, a bold offer. So please subscribe to Property Investor News. Subscribe today. Yeah. Just like to leave you with this. The more you sweat in training and in rooms like these, the less you'll bleed in your battlefield. Back to you, Simon and Dil.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ranjit. Very good of you. I am going to get the slides up in a minute, but anyway, it's all going great today so far. So talking about expertise and bringing the right knowledge and so forth. Simon's smiling. What am I doing wrong? Okay. Anyway.
No, it's about the expertise in the slides. I'll always love it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. So back to the expertise and the knowledge, and we've got a really great guest with us today, ASHLEY Broughton, award-winning architect, qualified at University of Birmingham, done retail, commercial, leisure projects. Most fascinating of all. Hang on. Sorry, Simon, you okay? Most fascinating of all, he's worked for the Crown, Her Majesty's Crown Estate. Done developments in Estonia, shopping centre, Bow Homes, 1,100 homes, and also a £180 million leisure development. ASHLEY, I know I haven't done it justice, but I'm going to pass it on to you. So let's share your wisdom, sir.
Yeah, right. So I'll start off with sort of a brief introduction to who I am. So obviously, Dil was just introduced me briefly. So So I originally went to Lincoln University, moved to Birmingham and worked for quite a major practice there. We've worked on various things from works of Buckingham Palace to, I think the largest project we worked on was the lakeside development for Intu, which is about £180 million commercial development. They were about 60% all the way through the build, unfortunately, when they went bankrupt early the back end of last year. It's still a lovely scheme if you go there, and it's up for sale, I believe, for a fair amount if anyone's interested in that sort of stuff. I'm going to try and play this introduction video. I don't know how well this is going to work, so let's give it a go. Oh, it's not going to let me do that. Dil, are you able to play that on your part?
I'll have a go, but as you know, my tech skills are as good as yours. Let's see what we can do. Let's have a go. I guess it's on the Facebook, is it?
It should. That's the one I sent across in the email. That comes through.
I'll have a go, and you can have a refund if I don't get it working.
That's all right. That's all right.
It's
It's only basically a brief introduction to some of the stuff that we've done and the projects. The one thing I was going to talk about here is just 2 case studies, just to give you an idea of what we do and the benefits of it.
Actually, I was going to say, we can't get Ranjit's slides working. Do you think we've got any chance of getting your video working?
Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay, right. So what I'll do is I'll do it. That's probably the easiest way to do it. 1 second. I'll get my notes up. And you guys have disappeared, which is not helpful. Okay, so the first project I'm just going to talk you through about briefly is one called Bowesfield. Now this is quite a unique one. This is sort of for the slightly larger developers. So this is for a scheme of 161 houses. They're quite unique houses. Now the reason we've done this is it's unusual, basically. So the way that they work out your affordable homes calculation is based on the estimated build costs and various other statistics. Now, if you go a little bit off the norm, you don't necessarily have to go more expensive, but they then can't calculate the affordable homes requirement. The end result is you get 0%. So we've got 161 homes, 0% affordables, which is ridiculous. You wouldn't get that in most counties, I suspect. Obviously, it took time to get to this point, but the added value of spending that 6 months of arguing and beating them down is just ridiculous. It's definitely worth doing. I was hoping to show you a few images of what I mean by sort of changing the standard of architecture, but obviously that's not working. But what I'd say is it's nothing crazy. You don't have to go massively overboard. So we've used black bricks, standard seam cladding, things along those lines, things that is pretty standard in the rest of Europe. You just don't tend to find it in the UK. So when you go to the district valuer, this is the person who works for the government, who tells them the affordable homes requirement, he then can't value it. The only person who can value that accurately is the project QS. So they basically can't double check your figures. So they take you on your word, which you can play that however you like. In this case, we've got a 0% affordable, which is outstanding. I'm happy to share details with that. I mean, that will be on our website, and I've got a video, and we always do animations as standard, sort of showcasing what we do. Obviously can't show that on here, but if you're interested in sort of what that could look like, I'm more than happy to share that. And the opposite end of the scale, same sort of logic behind this, in that if you change the norm of architecture, you can kind of break the system again. So this is for a single house. This is the developer has bought a bungalow on a place called Walnut Hill, just south of Norwich. So it's quite a nice area on the Broads. So house values in that area are good. Now he's bought the bungalow for 320,000. We've got estimated 700,000 build costs, but it's a nice home. It's nothing crazy, but it's nice. And we've got a sale value of just under 2.4 million, which is a substantial amount of profit for one scheme, realistically. It'd be all nice if we made that amount of profit on one project every year, wouldn't it? Basically, what I'm going to now do is just sort of open it up for questions. And so what I'm going to try and help and advise on is how you can use the architecture to basically break the planning system. There is speculation at the moment, and this was only sort of discovered within the last 48 hours, that they've amended one of the planning policies over the last couple of weeks, and they've broke it themselves in that you can now build a house without planning permission if it's classed as a self-build. Now, we're still working to figure out exactly how this works, but we now do have it on quite good terms with a barrister that this is the case. You can build houses without planning, providing they're a self-build and the foundations are in when you go in for planning. So I'll hopefully have a bit more details on that soon.
Sorry, I've got to interrupt you there. So basically, if you put the foundations in,
Yep.
and you claim it to be a self-build,
Yep.
you can build it without planning permission.
You then go in, you submit an application, but they can't refuse it. There's no method for them to refuse it. Now, we don't know why they've managed to break this policy. They're going around and they're rewriting all the policies at the moment.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know why they've done this, but someone's not spoke to someone and they've basically broken the system, so it doesn't work.
And do you think they're going to fix this and say,
oh, they'll definitely fix it, but the amount of time it will take them to fix that, you're looking at probably 3 to 6 months before they even attempt to fix it. There's so many other things going on at the moment. A lot of policies are being rewritten for various reasons.
Yeah. Oh.
It's not the top of their concern.
So we've had all this Class E stuff, doing double story extensions, putting your extra story on bungalow, all of that when we had a planning consultant on a couple of weeks ago. But what you're saying is you've discovered a loophole whereby, and correct me if this is, I guess this is sort of breaking news. This is better breaking news than the stamp duty rubbish that Bobby was talking about.
Well, we're putting this to the test now. So we've now got a project on site where we're going to literally trial this. We're not the first people in the area to do it. It's one of our business partners actually told us about it yesterday. Okay. They have attempted it in the last 3 weeks and have got it passed on them grounds. And if you was not to have done that, there is no way that would have been approved. So they've proven it worked for them. We're now going to try it again and see if the same system works. I suspect it probably will. And if that is the case, I can then sort of confirm, we've done it, it does work.
So you put your foundations in the ground?
Yep.
And then you apply for your planning?
Yep, you submit it straight away with the foundations in as a self-build. And there seems to be a breakdown in the policy that just, they can't refuse it. There's a line missing somewhere that stops them from being able to do that.
And do you have to have building control for that? Because that's the usual process of doing something like that.
I don't think you do. I think as long as you can go in for full plan approval, I suppose you can. No, I guess you would have to go in, obviously, for your building control approval. The building control and planners never speak to each other anyway.
Yeah, they're two separate departments. Yeah. They're two separate things, and you can get private building control, and they don't check whether it's none of their business to check whether you've got planning or not.
Yeah, exactly.
They're two different silos, if you like. So it's possible to put a building notice in. And does the plot have to be separate, or could it be in the back of your garden?
It can be anywhere you like. So, I mean, self-build is it's an odd clause, because what people think self-build means doesn't matter. We've got a row of 5 developments all being done by a developer that are all self-builds. The only condition on there is they've picked their own roof material. That's still cast as a self-build.
Oh, okay. So when so there was a scheme not too far from where I live, in Heston, where I used to live, and it's a really well-known developer, and they bought a site that I think they had about 7 houses on there. So they'd put the foundations in, and they were selling them out, or they actually tried to sell it out as, this is your own plot, you can build it. We've just put the ground structure in there. So they'd actually thinking about it, they'd put the foundations, they'd create the roads and the drains, and that was it. And then they'd put all these plots up for sale. They didn't quite manage to sell it for whatever reason. I do know the developer, but they ended up building it themselves. So what you're saying is put with the planning afterwards. And
submit your planning. Then when you come to sell them, as long as you sell it with options, so the end user gets some choice on something. I believe it has to be external. So letting them pick a kitchen, for example, wouldn't count. if they get to pick the roof material or the color of the window finish, something along them lines, you can then class them as self-builds.
Yeah, and self-build doesn't actually mean you're going to go out there, dig the trenches and put the brickwork up. It just means that it's your project, basically. And
yeah, you've had input from the start of construction, basically. That's all it means, really.
wow, that's and when do you think you'll know more about this stuff?
Like I say, we're going to test it now with a project. Realistically, the planning system is going to be a minimum of 4 to 6 weeks before we get an actual response. But like I say, we've got a couple of people now testing this out as well. A couple of our other developers are just going to give it a go and see what happens. Why not? They've got land there available. So, I mean, for the sake of digging a bit of foundation work, what's the worry?
Do you think it applies to, if there was like restrictions on the land, then there'll be reasons to reject it?
The main one to be wary of at the moment is the HAS regs. They're a nasty little planning policy that have been brought in from Europe, which they're rewriting for the UK. They're the habitats and species regulations. So if you've got any sort of protected animal on there, at the moment as it currently stands, even if you've got planning permission and they discover a protected species of grass on the site, providing you haven't dug the foundations, they can take the plan off you at any point. So just because it's got planning permission doesn't mean that's safe. It's not valid until you start the actual construction process.
Sorry, Aaron, did you just say protected species of grass?
Yes, we've got a site at the moment, which is actually a former hospital. They used to burn the patients when they passed away and threw the ashes out the window. Horrid idea. But this has resulted in a really rare species of grass that we're now dealing with. It's joyously good fun, but there we go.
I've heard of bats. I've heard of, was it newts and...
yeah.
I suppose this is what they call marshes and grassland and peat bogs, that sort of...
Yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it? The list of things that are protected is, yeah, it drives us insane at times. But yeah, that was a new one for us as well, protected grass. But yeah, so just be wary of them.
If you had property on, if you've got an existing property on greenbelt land, for example, then how would that work? Because if you knocked it down, because it's a small plot and you built it 50% bigger, just for argument's sake, so it was within, say, the permitted development rules anyway, then because they can't refuse that, then is that the plan?
So replacement structures, we do this a lot. I mean, that was one of the examples I was going to show, which is this Walnut Hill one. So he's bought a bungalow for around about 400,000, which I think off the top of my head is about 108 square meters.
Right.
He's gone back in for a 770 square meter villa. That's still classed as a rebuild.
Yeah, well, yeah, you go all the way around the outside and up into the dormers, then yeah, wow. That's not
it's
really
the same overall height. That was the end argument. That the scale from the road is the same. It doesn't matter how far back into the site it goes or how far down, but from the road, it's the same height.
Right.
And what are the qualifying issues for that? Is that something difficult, simple, or medium?
No, I mean, rebuilds are almost one of the easiest things to do. We also do it quite a lot with class Qs. So you're going for a class Q for a barn conversion, that then gets approved. You then release the class Q in exchange for a building plot. So you still keep the barn and you get a plot at the end. Now, if you really wanted to, you could wait 3 years and go in on a class Q again. And just keep playing the system.
So you get a barn, you go for a class Q, and then you say, I'll swap you my class Q for a building plot on the same farm.
Yep.
So they'll say, okay, and then you wait 3 years and you do the same exercise again.
You can do, yeah. There's nothing stopping you doing that.
Wow, I'm going to go and find a barn somewhere, I think.
But what happens if it was on greenbelt land? What would happen then?
I don't think it really matters where it is.
So even though the barns and the stables that you're going to knock down, they're with greenbelt land, then the council or the planning office can't turn it down. So obviously
the policies vary from county to county. certainly in our county, there is a special policy for barns and agricultural buildings. So regardless of where that barn or agricultural building is, it doesn't matter basically. As long as it's outside a settlement boundary, you can either go for a conversion or a class Q on it. Doesn't matter where it is.
Right.
And is that a national policy? Is that peculiar to different councils?
It's from the national policy framework. Now, each council will slightly rewrite that and tweak it for themselves, but what you'll probably find is they're all the same anyway. They've just taken it. So for us, it's called DC 20, I believe. Now, it might vary from council to council, but if you look at development in countryside, it will come up with class Qs or barn conversions.
Right. So
And-
obviously you got like in your example of the bungalow with the right to light, if he was annoying the neighbours, for example, or something like that, maybe an objection or.
So with this one, we've not gone any higher, dug down a little bit. However, the right to light in certain places like London, I think it applies, but everywhere else, it's actually more of a rumour than a real policy.
Yeah, right to light it's.
Well, that's why a lot of extensions, double-story extensions, don't get built, because on the back of the house, when you build it, you create a shadow then on your.
No, it's not about Simon. Sorry, it's not about shadows. It's about how you affect their right of light. Sorry,
Yeah,
right of light and daylight and planning light, the three different things.
Yeah.
So
One
easement.
of your main things to consider was impact upon the amenity of the adjacent property. So
Yeah.
that's not necessarily light, it's just their overall impact. So if someone was to build something on all four sides, it would be not a nice garden anymore, basically. Obviously, if you're in London, that's sort of pretty standard anyway, but if you're in the countryside and they had all these amazing views and now they've just got four buildings around them. So that's where the policy kicks in, or overlooking is the other one. But there's no actual right to light as such. I know there is in some cities like I think Birmingham and London do, obviously where you've got massive structures, but everywhere else it's more of an amenity issue than anything else.
Yeah, so what the planners talk about is your amenity, and that's their version of right of light. There's the easement of a right of light, which means if you've had a window there for 20 years, you have a right to receive that light. That's called a right of light easement. However, I've got a case going on where the guy's saying their house originally sold, had that easement taken away because they were next to each other. So that's one version of doing it. And the third version of this is when you actually build a development, because you get the right of light experts in, they're sort of taking measurements and do computations, how much their right of light has diminished from an 800, it's at the height of 800 from a particular window. That nobody actually knows what these guys do, but they come up with a calculation, say you've lost XYZ daylight, it's impacted your value by XYZ. They have 1 year to claim and they can just claim from the next door. So there's three different versions of the same interchangeable phrase that everybody messes up basically. So everybody confuses, but there's three different versions of it. The reason we get involved in right of light as party wall surveyors is it's one of the easements everybody complains about, but it's outside of our remit, and the neighbours have 1 year to complain on. But in a county like yours, with all of that space, I doubt very much if you're going to get affected.
No, I mean, you might get it in Norwich, which is probably the only majorly built up area anyway. Otherwise, I mean, realistically, if you're set 3 or 4 meters back from a fence, the 1.8 meter high fence is going to be more impact.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
Simon, does that help with what you were thinking? Is that, or have I got this wrong?
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's just like the problems we have in London with so many small terraced houses put together in little patterns that for many years you've just always only been able to do the single story, because with the terraced house, if you go double story up at the back of the house, then the neighbours either side of you, it blocks out light into their properties quite considerably. And if it depends how the sun goes round, you can actually make someone's house really dark, you know, to the point of they've got to have lights on during the day inside the house. So But that's all about someone objecting anyway to your plans, isn't it? When you put the plans in, then anyone can make an objection, can't they? So, because it goes public. So,
Ashley, comments on that, or do you stay away from London because it's a rubbish place for you guys?
I mean, we've done 1 or 2 projects in London. We try to avoid it. I've done major developments in London. We did the Intu Watford Junction development.
Nice
nightmare. It really
the one with John Lewis that's closing. Yeah.
Yes. So the reason Intu went under was actually a really strange business model. I don't know if you know. The way they work is they don't charge rent. They charge a percentage of sales. So 0.1% of every sale is how they take their charge. Well, when everyone went into lockdown, that meant they had no income. There's no one making any sales. So that's actually what drove them under. Is the unusual model.
Right.
I live in Uxbridge. It's just lost its name because we just got used to calling it the Intu, and now it's gone back to its original name. So
yeah, that's where the cinema complex is, the Intuit shopping centre. Yeah. So
yeah,
what you're saying is
back to the Chimes again.
No, the Chimes is a different one, mate. That's a different.
No, it's not. It's the same thing. They renamed it. Intu bought the Chimes, and then they renamed it.
Okay.
So,
all right.
but luckily, they haven't taken the signs down. They're still there, but they tried to recall it the Intu Centre, but no one really took off on that idea anyway. So
no. Well, I know most of their centres are now back up for sale.
Not surprised.
Yeah.
It's
Good luck.
an unfortunate business model. Who could have predicted the coronavirus? So,
I mean, it's a great business model apart from the coronavirus got in the way. But
well, yeah, they completely couldn't predict that. I know as of probably about 18 months ago, they had 1.2 billion just tied up in extension work in the UK. Now, I think they've got 19 active sites. And that was all built on, yeah, we'll be fine because we've got this guaranteed income from John Lewis and House of Fraser and all these companies. And then obviously it just all went horrifically wrong very quickly.
Wow. Okay, and are you going to put in a bid for it because you obviously understand the business model?
I actually did work with a potential client that was very interested in buying Lakeside. I think they wanted about 400 for that, and they did go in for it. Unfortunately, they were beat into it. There's a lovely strip of land right next door that you could get probably a good 500 apartments on, and everyone saw the same opportunity and beat us to it, unfortunately.
So just to make sure, that's 400 million and not 400,000.
Yes, yeah, 400 million.
Notes in the right place. All right, that's really interesting.
So
you were that. Sorry, Simon.
So actually, with your work that you do you mainly do the commercial side, or do you do?
No, where we are now, we're primarily residential. We do some commercial work. We do a few dentists, and we've done a few restaurants here and there. Primarily, we're residential.
So you just do commercial big projects as a little side venture?
That's what I used to do.
Right.
I've pulled away from that just because, I mean, I'll use Lakeside as an example. That was going to be a minimum 10-year build. I can't look at the same thing for 10 years without going mad. Driving me insane. So yeah, I've switched to a slightly faster paced world of residential, which is, it's great fun. But what we tend to find is there's a lot more loopholes coming through the residential side, which is what we're exploring.
Well, we've had Linda Wright on, who's a planner. She was talking to us about Class E changes and what's going on. And then after that, we had a developer the following week in terms of just going to buy these places and changing effectively the shop itself. And it was changing the commercial values because the rental value you're getting in. And now we're getting more news on plans. It seems like the old planning policy, they said they were going to rip it up, but the trouble with ripping something up and starting again is, unfortunately or fortunately, it seems mistakes are made, and it creates.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few kicking around at the moment. I'm not sure if you know this one, but a class or C3 use class is also associated with assisted living. Assisted living developments don't have to be within inside the settlement boundary. So essentially you can build a cluster of 20, 30, 6-bedroom houses, class them as assisted living, and then put them on the open market as private houses.
That's C what, sorry?
I think C3. So that still includes your assisted living use.
Well,
Simon, are you going to get assisted living then?
no, I was more thinking that Ashley should put his details up on the flipboard if you can't make the screen share work today, as to how we contact you, Ashley. Or perhaps you share it.
It'll let me change my background, won't it? So let me see if I can.
So if then our viewers can give you a ring and talk about the marvels that you might be able to create for them. So
let's see if I can change my background so that it's got my contact details on. 1 second.
It's a little cog, then you go to the virtual background and then you select one.
Don't pretend you know, Dill. Come on.
Sorry?
Don't pretend you know.
I manage to change mine about once or twice a month or a week sometimes when I get it right. So Ashley, I'm going to let you concentrate. Simon, that's an interesting couple of revelations, and I know roughly whereabouts you live, or quite close to you. You've got a few barns and farms around. Is that worth an investigation? We could build a house every 3 years, basically, if we get hold of enough land.
I know that's the where we are. We are right on the edge of the Greater London. So literally within a mile, I'm into quite a few different counties. It seems now it's crazy within a few miles. So, but if you go out to the left, you go into South Bucks, and that South Bucks as a county is just one great big forest with a few houses dotted around.
Your mission, should you wish to accept it, is to find a barn.
Yeah.
I'll jump in. Hopefully that image is now changed.
Yes, it has.
Yeah. The house behind me is the one we swapped for a Class Q. Hopefully, if I duck out of the way.
Wow.
That's not.
Yeah, that was a Class Q that we sacrificed for that.
Did you get the swans extra, or they?
Yeah, we had to buy them in.
So, quick question for you, Ashley. You're a bit low. So, what constitutes a barn? Is there a formal definition? Does it have to have 4 timber posts? Does it still have to have a roof, or could it be one of these buildings that's literally was stood there at one time has only got 4 haystacks left? Is there
the more attractive it is, the better. The terminology is it must be classed as a rebuild. No, one minute, I'm trying to remember what it is. It has to be classed as a repair or conversion, not a full rebuild. So providing you stand there and look at it and it looks like a barn, preferably not metal, however you can do a metal barn, that would class as being able to convert.
And if you find one in particularly bad state, is it worth saying to the farmer or the barn owner, can you make it a bit more tidier before I start all this stuff up?
Yeah, tidy it up. I mean, realistically, most barns have been stood there at least 100 years. There will be some minor damage, probably the roof or whatever. That's fine. As long as it can be repaired, not demolished, that would class as a conversion. We are always looking for barns. I mean, your chance of success on a barn is so high that we normally do a risk share. So we won't charge planning fee unless we win, because that you just stand such a good chance of getting them through.
Interesting. So you're prepared to do a risk share on a barn?
Yeah, definitely.
Simon, we need to find some barns, mate. It's like, and then every 3 years you're creating one of these. Sorry, would you mind that again? Because
Actually, I'll call you afterwards.
Yeah, you've got barns, definitely send them our way. We're definitely interested.
Actually,
I'll give you a call because I want to talk you through a project. So,
Okay.
I must admit, I'm sitting here absolutely gobsmacked here. And
all right, you Simon. I
am actually. So
even I'm slightly gobsmacked. Ashley, would you mind doing a duck? Because I just want to capture that. It actually looks like James Dillon's house. Hang on a sec. Stay there. Right, Simon, you find the barn and we'll build one of those things. And Ashley can bring. That's it. Got it, mate. Ashley can bring the swans, I guess.
Well, see, there we go. So you've got it sorted. You can do the party wall. Ashley can design it, and Bobby can finance it. See, that's what the property professionals is all about: is working together as a team and using your trusted sources of people to make the property journey a little bit easier.
Simon, I think I'm going to have to break some bad news. There's probably no party walls in that scenario.
Well, you can always.
You can't create one when there isn't one.
You split it into two residents, one barn.
Well,
no, that's not what party walls are about.
The way that Ashley's speaking, the property will be so big, we will actually be building over a couple of acres, so we'll be probably touching the neighbours eventually.
Right. So Ashley, I'm a little bit more than a little bit gobsmacked, and Simon will tell you I'm usually not lost for words.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you a couple of questions, if we're allowed.
Far away.
On some of your CV, you said you worked on Buckingham Palace. What can you tell us about that? Because
not a lot. I wish I could tell you I did something beautiful and amazing. I did the Queen's bathroom.
What?
That's all I did. Well, I worked on the Queen's bathroom.
So how does not disclosing the actual fittings and so forth, because we'll probably get the black helicopters flying and all the men sailing down and sellotaping our mouths shut. But how does a process like that work? Because I'd imagine the builders and the security would be.
So it was a surprising project. I mean, it's not really how you would imagine. I think the strangest thing that happened on that was we was all sort of sitting around a desk on Friday afternoon, sketching out ideas, and the receptionist ran upstairs. It's like, guys, look good, look good. It's like, what are you panicking about? Prince Charles is behind me. Just showed up out of the blue.
Really?
Yeah, we used to work in the jewellery quarters, so that's where they make all the OB pins and things for the royal family. So you happen to
in Birmingham, jewellery quarter in Birmingham. Okay.
Yeah, and he saw us and was like, oh yeah, they're doing some work for the month. I'm going to pop in there and just sort of welcome yourself in.
And that was it. That was.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I'd love to say that I did, some grand dining room or something, but no, I did the toilet. But there we go.
That's even more interesting than the grand dining room.
Actually, in the chat, there's a gentleman who's listening at work. His name is Steve, and he's actually asking, he wants to hear the whole scenario again about the barns. So, the program is recorded and it's live on Facebook as we speak. So it's left on there all the time, Steve. So,
I'll just give you a sort of a very brief summary anyway. So there's essentially two.
Feel free to, I was going to say to Steve, feel free to contact Ashley directly.
Drop me an email, a few questions. Like I said, there's two main routes. You've got your class Q or you've got your typical conversion. Certain types of barns are more catered towards certain types. Obviously, a large metal, what you would assume is sort of a reasonably new barn, is more suited to a class Q. You can convert a 500-600 square meter barn into houses, not an issue. Doing it as a class Q, as long as it's reasonably structurally sound, that's the main sort of thing. Or if it's a sort of older barn, so you typical clay lump or something along them lines, again, just go in for a conversion, pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Back to this James Bond villain palace you've got behind you. Whereabouts is that roughly?
So this is actually a country park. It's owned by I can't give you their details, but they're also the owner of a Formula 2 team. So they've got quite a strong interest in motor racing. And there's a barn just off to the right of that you got Class Q on. Obviously got that approved. We're now going in with the sacrificing the Class Q for the house. This is just under 800 square meters again. So it's quite a spacious property.
And does it have to be the same size or?
No. So what they do, the main concern is impact on vehicle movements. So if the barn's associated with 10, 15 movements of cars per day, based on, for a 4-bedroom house, this is going in as a 4-bedroom house with a dining room, 2 offices, a cinema. Now, as soon as you build this and sell it, it's an 8-bedroom house. You can just rebrand the rooms what you like when you're going for planning.
Yeah. Well, we've heard of the various planning tricks where you have an extortionately large room that's ready to be divided, but it's still classed as one room.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the classic one, isn't it? So, and then you have home office, gym, study, library, prayer rooms, and all of those are not counted as.
No, as long as it's not classed as another body in the house, it's fine.
Interesting. So, Simon, looks like Simon's already searching for his barn. Any other great tips, Ashley, or should we just,
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing it for a while. I'm trying to think of ones off the head, but if you send us a problem, if there's a bit of land that you're not sure about, or if you think it might have potential, just send it over. I mean, we're more than happy to have a little look at anything and give a bit of advice. But normally, where there's a will, there is a way somehow.
So in London, on some areas of London, you've got not in my garden at the moment, but I know in some places we've got very large back gardens and people build outhouses under PD. Is there a scenario where those can become independent units? Have you found a workaround?
This is all down to how clever the plan officer has been at the time. So when you get your planning conditions back, there might be a terminology or something in there that says this can never be split or sold separately to the main dwelling.
Ancillary to the main use of the house is the usual.
Yeah, exactly. However, despite the fact that they might say that in the planning committee or they've told you that on the phone or email, whatever, you then read the paperwork, it might not actually ever be in there. So double check that they have actually written it in there, because they don't always actually do it.
Oh, okay. So they might not actually put it down.
No, they'll stay there in the planning committee if it goes to one, these terms will be added to the conditions. And then you get it through and it's just not been done.
Just going back on your earlier point where you looked at this development, I've forgotten how many houses, where they were all bespoke or individual houses, so they couldn't do affordable housing. Yes. Do you have any ideas on how to deal with this sill issue that everybody comes across, how to peel it and how to get around it?
So yeah, sill's an odd one. So Norfolk or parts of Norfolk are sill exempt. So we don't have sill here. We do have it in South Norfolk, but Brecon, where we primarily work, doesn't have any form of sill payment. So each sill policy is written by the council. It's not a uniform one across the nation, I believe. So that would be one where we'd actually have to look at the paperwork for that council and just see how they've written it.
Great. Looks like you sort of specialize in the bit that everybody else doesn't want to specialize in, I guess is one way.
A lot of the projects we actually do are for ourselves. Probably 50% are in schemes. So this 161 one that I've mentioned, the Bowesfield development. So that was all done by us. We were the end client who then sold it on to a development company. When I say it was unusual architecture, I mean there were mono-pitch houses with black bricks and standing seam roofs. They weren't crazy. You don't need to. People panic when you say unusual architecture and think it's going to cost a lot of money. I think now the QS is valued at about £1,400 per square metre build cost. Roughly, obviously you don't do it that way, but as a sort of average across the site. So it's not expensive to build contemporary. Sometimes it's actually cheaper.
How can it be cheaper? So
standing seam weighs about 30% of what a standing slate roof weighs. So just simply swapping the roof out for a different material, which is cheaper to start with, it's 30% of the weight. So therefore every steel work, all the structure can become lighter. So you save money on the overall build cost.
What do you swap for slate work? What was that?
So it's a standing seam. It's a material that's quite heavily used in like Scandinavia. So been used in Denmark for probably 100 years. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't come to the UK that quickly. However, what you'll find is if you're doing like a barn conversion, for example, the planners will actually promote the use of standing seam rather than slate because it looks a little bit more like the old asbestos roofing you used to get. So it's more is more appropriate to a barn than a slate roof.
Right. Okay. Got it. So if it's an unusual material, i.e. it's not a Redland 49 or clay tiles,
Yep.
you can say, well, because it's unusual, it's worth less money or it's cost less. And
you basically fudge the fingers. You say it's going to cost more. So standard seam is a good one because there's two variants. You can go zinc. Now zinc is a bloody expensive roof material.
Yeah.
But visually is absolutely no difference to powdered coated steel.
Yeah.
So you might go in for approval on the zinc roof, but put a clause in there that says visually similar. And then when you come out to build, you go on your standard seam, but all their figures and all the calculations for your build cost have been done on zinc. So now you've just saved a lot in build costs, but when they've done all the figures for your affordable homes, they've done it on the zinc. So you're sort of playing the maths there.
Yeah. So so just talk us through how this works in terms of, you've got your build cost for a normal house, or you build, is it build cost or build value?
But that was the build cost.
The build cost is, for example, 100,000. Let's take an example.
Yep.
Because you've used unusual materials and cheaper materials, you've got it down to 50,000.
Yeah, let's say that's right. Yep.
Yeah. And then they're going to assess it off the 50,000, or how do you get?
They assess it on the 100.
Yeah.
Because in the DNA that we submit, so we always submit CGIs as a planning policy, and they're really good because the CGI tells the story without actually putting it in words.
Yeah.
So if you say it's going to look like this image, at no point have I said that we're going to use zinc.
Yeah.
Now, in the US report, we've said that we've used zinc, which is 3 times the price. So when you're doing all your affordable requirements, there's a minimum amount of profit you're allowed to make before you can hit someone with affordable homes. I think it's 20%. Anything under that, they're not actually allowed to apply affordable homes on you. So you lift all of the figures in your QS report. Then when you go back in for your reserve matters, or discharge conditions where they want evidence of materials, you swap them all out for cheaper materials. So for example, bricks. I mean, bricks can vary in cost drastically depending on who you get them from and where you get them.
Yeah.
Just use a more expensive supplier when you go in for planning, swap them out for a cheaper one when you go to build, and you still don't get the affordable homes.
Right. So the issue is, as long as in the planning stage you're making less than 20% profit, there's no affordable homes requirement, and the actual builds are different materials and that there's a difference for the viewers in that you get overall planning, outline planning, then you get the full planning, and then you have to submit conditions. And we had to do it on a development that we did, where it was literally submit examples of materials and samples. And you're thinking, come on, guys, how am I going to submit a white PVC window with a beige finish render? But that's the sort of example that you're looking at, aren't you?
Yeah.
And so that's the stage before you actually start doing the build. And you're saying at that stage, because you've had your planning, they've done the calculation, and now when you're actually submitting the materials, that's the bit where you actually fine tune it, shall we say, rather than cheat. That's the third stage where you fine tune it. But by this time, all the calculations have been done. And because you haven't made that 20% profit, they can't ask you for affordable homes.
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
Smart. Can we bottle it and sell that process? You know, that's worth a fortune to developers. That's a brilliant tip. Simon, I'm not sure how we're doing for time, but what I can say is I think this has been one of the most fascinating programs we've done. You know, we had one where Bobby was speechless, and he's never speechless. I think you've got me and Simon speechless on this one. We might have screwed up the tech and messed up all the slide and the video sharing, but it's been a really interesting program, at least for me. Simon, what do you think on that?
No, absolutely. I think actually just want to actually stop the program and just give Ashley a call, because I need to talk to him in real life about real case to see what's gone so wrong.
Yeah. Can
Really
I
informative,
just
Ashley.
put
Really
that call
appreciate
with you,
it.
if you don't mind, Simon? I might learn something even more. No. Ashley, look.
That's very good. We appreciate your time today, Ashley. It was a very inspiring chat for our viewers.
No problem. I'm happy to come back again. Like I say, I'm moving house at the minute, but then when we're back to normal, I'm happy to come back on again whenever there's a slot.
How's that going in the middle of COVID? Just out of curiosity.
Second, sorry.
How's the house move going in the middle of COVID? Just out of curiosity.
It's very, very relaxed. It's really odd. We've never met the estate agents at all. I think it's a bit nervous from a homeowner's perspective. I mean, in our case, we're good tenants, but there's no sort of background checks being done as far as we can tell. I'd be nervous if it was my house and they were doing it this way for sure.
Just another comment on that house, that James Bond villain pad you've got in the back. You did say the barn thing related to vehicle movements. I think it's a bit ironic that you're saying the people who own that are into Formula 2 and the whole thing is about vehicle movements. So as long as they're doing
it's ridiculous. They're concerned that we can't have more than 3, I think it's 3 typical cars. But the garage is an 8-bay garage. But yeah, that doesn't matter because it'll store some classic cars or Formula 2 car in there, and that's perfectly fine. But yeah, I think sometimes the planners know their hands are tied. What can they do?
And sometimes it's a case of who's got. I've come across developers where they'll say, okay, well, if you guys are going to play silly buggers, we're going to bring up barristers, and do you really want to take a chance with them? And they say, we can't afford to do it, and councils have to back down. It's a case of with the smaller guys, the individual homeowners, the councils will pay the big boss, but when they come across the developers who are prepared to go for it, they then say, yeah, we've got to be careful here because these guys are really going to bring the big guns in, and it's some great information there. It's a case of everyone's finding loopholes around the planning system, and
Yeah, and I'm sure more will come over the coming weeks as they keep rewriting them.
Yeah, Ashley, look, you can come back anytime you like. Even if Simon doesn't let you back on, I definitely will because your stuff's super interesting.
No problem. Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you for your time. It's been a really enlightening show. I really appreciate it. Next time we'll try and get your videos and slides and anything else you like on there. We'll try and get.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hi, Ashley. Thanks very much for coming over. Can you put me on video, Jill?
No, that'll cost you extra, mate.
Okay, charge me on later.
Hang on. Let's see if I can get you on the video. Damn. Yeah, you have to press the button on your side now. There you go.
I just did. Okay, Ashley, thank you very much for your presentation, and we shall get in touch with you soon when we have another slot available.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
It's been a bit chaotic at the moment because we're not only am I moving house, we're also moving offices, which is joyously good fun. But hopefully we'll be back to normal soon.
Yep.
Okay, thanks very much indeed.
Ashley, thank you very much.
Simon,
Simon, you.
thank you.
It's a very inspiring chat today, and thanks to all our guests. So goodbye from me.